Welcome to the Beyond the Ribbon podcast, where we are creating an empowering and supportive community for women navigating the journey of breast cancer. My name is Lindley Harris.
And I'm Amy Smith,
your fellow survivors and thrivers. Whether you are currently facing a diagnosis, undergoing treatment, or adjusting to life after cancer, this podcast is for you.
Our mission is to provide raw, unfiltered insights and practical information to help you through every step of your cancer journey. We want you to know that you are not alone. We will journey together and we will heal together.
Welcome back to Beyond the Ribbon. We are so excited because we have Brittany, our first survivor guest, here with us today, and we are just excited to get to share her story and hopefully connect with more breast cancer patients.
I think it's super interesting that we've all known each other for many years in different ways, and that we're all here for the same reason. So Brittany and I grew up literally down the road from each other, which is so wild. I went to school with her brother, so we were a little bit different in age. But I mean, the closest country neighbors could get is what we were. And then we all went to the same school together. And so we knew each other or knew each other's siblings and stuff. So it's just crazy how life brings you together.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like we were meant to be friends, whether we wanted to be or not.
They always say joining the club that you never wanted to be a part of. Yeah. And that's so true. But no one talks about the bonds that you get from that, you know. Yeah. There's a lot of good that comes with it.
So Brittany, I remember reading your posts about your breast cancer, and it honestly stopped me in my tracks because your experience is so unique with how that came about and where you were in life when breast cancer happened. So I would love for you to share kind of what that experience was. Like, where did this all start and how did this come about?
Yeah, so I went to my annual OBGYN appointment, just typical appointment, and I was going to talk to him about how my husband and I wanted to start trying to have a family, and he found the lump at that appointment, and he, didn't think it was much, but he wanted to have it checked out because we had planned a trip to Mexico. It was supposed to be like our last hurrah before trying to start.
Yes.
And so I had all the testing done. You guys know the process.
Yes.
The ultrasound, the mammogram, ending up with the biopsy.
Okay.
And I got the call on April 2nd of 2019. So I was 28 that I had breast cancer.
Okay.
I was at work. It's all such a blur, as I'm sure you guys can remember. It's almost like an out-of-body experience. Like you're watching, getting the call.
Oh my gosh, I found out at work too, so I empathize with you. That is traumatic because you're not in your safe place. You know, that's a lot. So my gosh.
So I of course left work.
Yes.
And we met with my surgeon and met my oncologist the next day. It was very quick. I believe it was the next day. Okay, can you cut that part?
Yeah.
I hate when I second guess myself.
Yeah, no, it's okay. It's totally fine.
Yeah. So after I got the call, we met pretty quickly with the surgeon and the oncologist, and they had the whole plan out there. I was going to be doing chemo first, and then surgery, which is typical for a triple positive diagnosis.
Yes.
And fast forward a week, I was a few days late for my period, and I'm under a lot of stress. That's what it is.
Oh, yeah.
And
I completely understand.
I took the test, and I told my husband, I'm pregnant. And he's like, no, you're not.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, I am. And it was just so difficult because that had been something from the appointment, where this all started, that we'd been talking about how I wanted to start a family.
Yeah.
And they had told me, you can't get pregnant during all this, of course, and 5 to 10 years after all this is done, you're going to be on medications where you can't get pregnant anyways. So to me, it was it's very likely that I will never have a child. And that just killed me.
Of course it would.
So in that moment, that should have been such an exciting moment to me.
Totally.
It was like, I have a hormone-driven cancer, and I have a baby in my stomach. Like,
of course.
so it was terrifying. So, you know, the next day they canceled a test that I was supposed to have. They, you know, did the blood work to confirm. And when my doctor called me and was like, "Oh, congratulations, you're pregnant," I was like, "Congratulations!" Like, it was this, like, of course I want this, but like, this is, what am I going to do? And meeting with my OB, he provided like more comfort about it, saying you can fight this and still have your baby, because you don't know what things are going to be like after chemo. Trying to get pregnant. So of course they had to switch up my whole plan. And so we had to wait till I hit my second trimester, and surgery was going to be first then. So in June of 2019, I went for a lumpectomy with the sentinel node biopsy. And they did come back that it had gone to at least one of my sentinel nodes. And they didn't get clear margins for my lumpectomy. So then I had to go back, and I wanted her to just go ahead and do a double mastectomy at that point. And
when did you do the lumpectomy? Like, was there a time between?
So
the same day? So
all 3 of my surgeries that I had in June of 2019, they all fell within 17 days.
Oh my goodness.
So I think I went in, I think it was a Monday that I went in for the lumpectomy and the sentinel nodes. And then it came back, didn't have clear margins. So I said, just take them both. And she said, I'm not going to do extra surgery while you're pregnant. Like, we're just not going to do that. And she said, give it one more try for a lumpectomy. So they took me in for my second surgery, only under partial anesthesia. So I was like awake in the OR, and I forget at what point, like, I was way too aware of what they were doing, that the meds kicked in, and I was kind of like, you know, I don't remember the rest of it. And then they said that one was on a Friday. And they came back and they said, you know, still not clear margins. We have to do the full mastectomy. And they brought me back in just a few days and did the full mastectomy. And we had a party the night before. We had an ice cream cake from Dairy Queen.
I do feel like I remember that.
Because I love that was like something you celebrated.
Yes.
Because that was a lot.
Yes, it was Bye Bye Bad Boob party. So
yeah, girl.
Yes.
So get that out of there.
Yeah. So that was the beginning of my treatment plan, were those 3 surgeries. So
man, this is a really off, I mean, it's on topic, but it's a little bit off left field here. I am just imagining, because my surgery, when I had my mastectomy, I had 2 surgeries in one day. And all I'm thinking about is how your body was handling that, because I was a wreck for 2 weeks after. Like, not being able to go to the bathroom because I was so backed up from the anesthesia, making everything super slow in here. And like, it was just so uncomfortable. Like, I can only imagine what you felt like being pregnant on top of it.
Yeah.
That is insane.
Because also, do you guys remember, I know we talked about this before, the first trimester tiredness?
Oh,
so you had gone through all of that during a cancer diagnosis, then 3 surgeries on top of that, and that's kind of just the beginning of stuff. Like, that was a lot.
I can't imagine what you were going through and during that. But wow, like, you have like a warrior tag on you because you are awesome.
No,
that's crazy.
I've said, like, I've struggled with anxiety, and I think that in my life I was at the most peace during treatment. I think it kind of was at that point of you had nothing else but to trust in God's plan.
Yeah.
And the way everything was unfolding, especially with the pregnancy, I didn't understand it, but I had nothing but to lean into it. And
he was the only thing that was constant, right?
Yes, and I had such a peace, and you don't have any other choice.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and for me, like, I wasn't only fighting for myself, I was fighting for my daughter.
Oh
So
my gosh,
it was a huge motivation for me.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you hear people say that there's just overwhelming peace that you can't explain, and that's it. I mean, just, and at that time, I mean, you had people you could depend on and things, but the thing I related to the most is I was like, you feel like you're on this roller coaster that you cannot get off of, you know, and that things weren't going as, like, to the plan that they had originally said, so you're, like, switching roller coasters, and it's just so much, but that's my biggest thing that I wish a lot of people could realize, and it took me to get cancer to start going to church to realize that, and I just feel like I wish more people could understand that more.
I wholeheartedly believe in all of that. I think when it brings you to your knees, because you are like I mean, for me, I was looking at my baby in the crib thinking, how in the world am I gonna just check out? Like, she just got here. Like, thankfully she's here, but my goodness, what am I gonna do if like, what is she gonna do without her mom? Like, she, and not only my daughter, but like my 3-year-old, like my son. I've just scratched the surface of being a mom. I don't even know really, you know, half of it. I've barely gotten through, you know, the first 4 years with success. And so now I'm like, how am I gonna just check out? And you know, when you have to like look at your life from a wide angle view, and you're like, okay, this is what could happen. I do feel like the best thing to do is to lean into, you know, your faith and really let go and follow the path of whatever is about to happen. So for me, that is what got me through it, 100%. So I love that you shared that.
Yeah, absolutely. You also had no family history, right?
No.
So it was a complete surprise.
Yeah, and like fast forward years later, I mean, it makes you so much more aware of what you're putting into your body, what you're putting on your body, what you're around, because this came from something around us.
Absolutely.
And that's terrifying.
Yeah.
That kind of answers one question that I was going to get to you. Is like, what has changed for you after your cancer journey? Even thinking of like your daughter's needs now, like mine started to need to wear deodorant, and I was like, let's look at something cleaner. Things that I had never really considered before, but it changes your whole perspective on foods and the products we put on our bodies. And you're right, like it's something environmental that we've had contact with.
It has to be. I mean, there is nothing, I have 100% faith that this is something environmental. There's no way that this is our genes. I mean, if you just look at what the topic is right now, it's like, you know, the Food and Drug Administration obviously isn't regulating things the way they should. And now that we're all moms, like, I mean, I'm just thinking, okay, how am I going to prevent this from my kids having something happen? I mean, that has, and I've said this forever, but way before I ever had cancer. I mean, that is like my number one fear in life. I don't ever want my child to be the one in my shoes going through that experience. I would do that 10 times over again so that they don't ever have to do that.
Absolutely.
But I'm going to do whatever I have to do, you know, to make sure that they are as healthy as they can be, even though they give me a lot of crap for it. I'm like, oh, why does she always make us eat?
It's worth it.
Yes. Yeah.
Did you end up having genetic testing done?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, so I had the genetic testing done.
And there was nothing that really showed up? Okay.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I had a gene, but it wasn't, they didn't know enough about it. It's the NBN gene. You can look it up if, you know.
I'm going to have to look up. I had a gene too that was kind of just like inconclusive.
Yes.
We'll let you know if we come across anything. And I was like, okay. Like.
Yeah, it was not like studied at that time.
Yeah.
So there really was no answer. And she was like, this isn't, I mean, my doctor was like, yeah, this isn't genetic. Like, this isn't the BRCA gene. This isn't any of those factors. Yes. Yeah. So after you had the surgeries, what was next on the list?
Oh, it's so long. But I started chemo. So I did 4 rounds of AC when I was pregnant with Taylor. And after those 4 rounds, I had a little bit of a break, and then they induced me at about 36 and a half weeks to have Taylor, because I needed more chemo that I couldn't have when I was pregnant with her. So that was nerve-wracking, because I just felt like I have to stay healthy. She needs to stay healthy
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
I am going to have to go back at this so
Yes.
quickly after I have her.
Mm-hmm.
So before you keep going, I have a question, because this is like the first thing that came to mind when I found out that you were having treatment. And I knew ahead of time that it was possible for you to have treatment.
Mhm.
But one of the things that was just so crazy to me is that you sit down with your doctor and your doctor's like, okay, you're going to have these chemos while you're pregnant.
Mhm.
Okay, what do they tell you when it comes to what this will do with your child? Like, does it affect your child? I know that they say it doesn't cross the barrier, but I don't know if that's actually accurate.
I honestly can say I really don't remember what they said.
Okay.
But I trusted my team
Okay.
wholeheartedly.
Mhm.
My breast surgeon and my oncologist, I just trusted them, and I knew they were collaborating with the right people, and
Yeah.
I wasn't concerned. They
Okay.
said that her birth weight could be low,
Okay.
but that was the only thing that really stuck with me,
Okay.
in that otherwise it wasn't going to affect her.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
That's wonderful.
What was her birth weight?
At 36, I think it was 36 weeks, 4 days is when I ended up having her, and she was 6'1".
Wow.
That's
Um,
good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And she was perfect, and she still is perfect.
Oh.
But yeah, so I had her, and it was just a few weeks after I had her that I went back for another 4 rounds. I don't remember what it was.
Like what was different in your chemo?
Was it TC?
That sounds Taxol.
It's Taxol and carboplatin.
I don't remember the second one.
Okay.
But I think it was Taxol.
Okay.
And then I did the Progetta and the Herceptin for a year.
I didn't know that people did that were triple positive, because we did as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another thing that I don't feel like a lot of people understand is it was still every 3 weeks, right?
Yes.
But it's like infusion.
Mhm.
It wasn't chemo per se, but people didn't really understand that it's kind of this same regimen, just different cocktail,
Yeah.
Yes.
and that it's still like, it's like a weird mindset
Mhm.
because it's not chemo, but it's the same
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
all-
type,
You're still going in there. You're still in
Mhm.
that environment. You're still having your port access.
Yep.
Right.
And for me, it was, so when I went back, I had those 4 rounds, and then I did in March of 2020, so right before COVID hit, I had the second surgery to remove my right breast, have expanders placed, and I had all my axillary nodes. That's what I'm saying there,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
And
Yeah.
my left side removed.
Yeah.
And so it was right before the shutdown, but I still had to go to my plastic surgeon to have the expanders filled. But as far as continuing to get the targeted therapies, I had to go alone.
Oh.
So that just really changed the dynamic of
It
treatment,
does.
because
Yeah.
I always had someone with me in treatment, and starting to go alone was just different. And then we come to the summer and it's time for radiation, and I still just find it so bizarre that my husband didn't meet my radiation oncologist. He didn't meet any of the radiation team that I got to know so well over those 5 weeks. And it was COVID. So the beginning of feeling like you had so much support, COVID changed that all for me.
Yeah.
It felt a lot more lonely once that happened. But yeah, so once I did radiation, I finished up that year of Progetta and Herceptin, and I ended up having my reconstruction surgery in December of 2020, and I think I had my last Herceptin and Progetta in January of 21.
Okay.
So there were a lot of, the medications in between, the Zolodex shots,
Oh, gosh.
all of those fun things.
Yes.
But those were the big treatments that.
Yeah.
How
So-
many radiation did you
25.
get? 25, same. Yeah.
Okay.
And that I found very lonely just
Mhm.
because you had to be in there by yourself.
Mhm.
Did you play music? I don't remember. Okay. They offered to play music for me, and I'd already said this in our episode, but I was like, yeah, I like country music. That was the saddest music to sit there and play. And when you said lonely, I was like, okay, so like her whole journey of her infusions on was that feeling, and that like super resonates with me. I'm like, that is so tough.
Yeah.
You get to too much time to think, you know?
Yeah.
It does. And I think when you're alone in those thoughts, it's like really hard to get back to a peaceful place.
Especially after just having a baby, like you feel like you probably don't get any time. So then, I don't know, did you ever feel like any sort of like kind of mom guilt because you had to be taken away to go do those things and not be with your baby?
At that point, it wasn't mom guilt because I knew that she didn't know the difference, and she had family around. But it was something that I have continued to have to deal with. Is the comparison. So for me, it was like, this isn't fair. Like, I'm a new mom. I should be able to be home with my baby. Or after my surgery, not being able to pick her up for an extended period of time. This is not fair.
Right.
And that was something, a big lesson that I learned was things aren't fair.
Yeah.
And I had to work through it, but it's okay to have those feelings. You just can't stay in those feelings.
Yes.
But comparison, I think, was something very, very toxic.
Absolutely.
Throughout the whole process.
Yeah, I could.
And it's not even like an intentional thing, you know. It's just like you just see an example of something, or we just had. Oh, and that's something you always think about too. Your entire life is can't wait to be a mom, and you picture it looking this way. And then it's like you don't get a choice, you know?
I think by fault, because we are human, we look for commonality in everything. And it's like, you know, we have something in common and we don't have something in common with somebody else. And so their journey doesn't resonate with us, or we don't compare ourselves. But when it's somebody that's similar, they have similar situations, we're just naturally looking for that commonality and who they are and what their experience was. Like my experience should be the same as hers, but it's not. And it's hard. It's very hard to keep your thoughts in a positive place. I feel like that is the core of why we wanted to do this, because I think the mental health aspect of after cancer is so neglected. Even though there are resources, I'm not saying there aren't. It's just really hard to like stand on your own 2 feet and say like, I'm not doing okay. Like I'm not doing well, because we always want to look perfect. Like I know I struggled with that a lot, like wanting to be the strong one and, you know, I don't need anybody's help. Like I got this. And as much as I was strong, I was also very weak, but I hid that. And so I want people to know that, you know, there are other women who have been in their shoes. Like if you're the person who is struggling and you feel like you are just the only person that has gone through your scenario, most likely you're not. Like there's somebody who has been through it and who is struggling with the same thing that they are. And so that's what, you know, that's really the whole behind the ribbon purpose and mission and what we
also,
hope to help.
You know how like sometimes they're like, oh, I have a cousin who was diagnosed, and it could be like apples to oranges, right? Because everything, like I didn't even know there were different types of breast cancer until I was diagnosed, and I was like, okay, but okay, you get a number of a person. That first time reaching out is so hard.
It is.
So it's like, I hope that this podcast can like maybe, you know, break the ice or something. Cause like my biggest thing is, and I've even told my husband, there's someone that I want him to reach out to that's going through something similar. His wife is diagnosed, and he's like, how in the world would I just call him up? And I said, listen, if it's God's will, it would happen anyways. So I was like, you just start by saying, hey, this is so-and-so, and my wife went through this, and you've just been on my mind. Like, I just want to reach out and see if there's anything I can do, or, you know, and it just happens, you know? And that's the hardest thing, though, is just taking that first step to do that. But I think community is such an important piece of your healing, too.
Yeah.
And it's also the hardest step to take,
It
you know?
is.
And it's not that any of us are too proud, but it's like, I don't want people to feel sorry for me, or there's so many other things that come with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think too, like being vulnerable is really difficult. I think
Yeah.
that we all have our guard up, whether we
Mhm.
know it or not.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, okay, what is the world gonna perceive of whatever it is that, you know, I choose to put out there. And I think if you can break down that wall, I think that there's such connection in finding people who really are in your corner, who want to, you know, root for you and be there for you, good, bad, and the ugly. So I think that that's so true.
I think so too. And one thing I want to talk to you about is I know how much we had texted about this stupid tamoxifen.
Oh gosh.
We were all equally not a fan of tamoxifen. I mean, yes, in ways, but man, some of the side effects really like.
It was better than the Zolodex, I'll say that. Did either of you do Zolodex?
I did not, no.
Oh, man.
But I do know, I've not experienced it myself. When I actually worked in the breast center after I had cancer, I learned a lot about that, and a lot of women talked about it.
Right. Remind me, I know it was like something injected in your stomach.
Yeah, it shuts down your ovaries and puts you into medical menopause.
Oh, okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Yes. How often did that have to happen?
I think it was monthly.
Yeah.
Is that right?
It's once a month, but you can go up to 5 weeks, but you have to get it, like,
on time.
you really need to get it on time.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've told Amy this. I'm like, there's so many things that I don't think I've purposefully pushed out of my mind, but I feel like there was just so much that it's hard to keep track of it all. So I'm like, that sounds familiar, but I can't tell you the details of
And
that.
honestly, too, I'm like, chemo brain, mom brain.
Totally.
I don't know what's going on a lot of times.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I'm like, but we have said that so many times. I'm like, did we choose to block it out?
Yeah.
Was it traumatic, or
Yeah.
did we just suck it up and move on too? Because there was a lot going on at
There
the
was.
time.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are like those pivotal moments throughout it that you're like,
Yeah.
I will never forget that, because you had like the feeling, you know, this traumatic feeling or whatever along with what was happening.
Yeah.
But then when you get in the groove of it all, it starts to kind of blend together.
Yeah.
So.
And I always said too, the birth of my daughter was so traumatic that I was like, I'm gonna write a book. And this woman was like, don't do that. No one would have kids after that. Like, it's good you forget some of those details, because we don't need to really remember them all. And that's a good point, because, you know, we don't need to hang on to all of that.
Yeah.
Totally.
So you did the Zolodex and the tamoxifen?
Yes, so I did the Zolodex for, I don't remember how long I did it for. And then I switched to the tamoxifen, and then I decided I wanted to go off of it because I wanted to have another baby. So you have to be off of it for 6 months before you start trying.
Okay,
So,
I couldn't remember the time period they said.
Yes, I think
That seems like an
I
eternity.
think it
at
was
that
6
point.
months, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then an eternity more when you start trying. So we started trying back in like the fall of, what is it, 25 right now?
Yeah.
So I had him in 24, so it would have been like October, November of 22, I guess.
22.
Is
Okay.
my math right?
So
Yeah, because he
Was it 2 years after?
23.
treatment?
Yeah. I'm trying to look. Okay, so I'd have gotten pregnant in 23 because I had him in 24.
Yeah.
So we would have started, okay, there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In like October or November. It all puts together. And
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. So October,
Yes.
November of 22.
2022. So
Okay.
yes. And we ended up getting pregnant. I found out I was pregnant January of last year.
Okay.
So it was well over a year of us trying, and it was frustrating because even though everybody said, oh, you know, you should be able to get pregnant, it was in the back of my mind, like, my body has been through so much. Like,
Of course.
Oh my gosh.
I mean,
yeah.
I know you can say that it's going to happen, but
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to. And I have a beautiful baby boy. He is 5 months old, and just total
That's
blessing.
amazing.
That is, I know.
It's such a blessing
I
for
know.
sure.
And it's like, I would love to know like what the statistics are percentage-wise for
Yeah.
like you who went through treatment, pregnant, and then could also like have another baby after. That's awesome.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I saw that you had another baby, I was like, yes, you go, girl.
Right.
I'm like, this is amazing. And then, of course, you know, the fact that he's just like beautiful and healthy and all the things, like that's all you could ever ask for. But like, I just thought that was amazing that you were able to put yourself through that again and really and be successful. You didn't Like nothing crazy happened. I just remember thinking like, I hope that experience for you was everything you had hoped for the first time around.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I'm so happy for you.
Yes, and that was when I was pregnant with Taylor and going through everything, back to the comparison thing of people who weren't going through cancer treatment when they were pregnant. I would just think like, oh, I'm bald and having maternity pictures while I'm bald and whatever, and it all turned out wonderfully. I had great maternity pictures.
Can we share some of those on our page? Good, because they are gorgeous.
Yes, you looked beautiful. I was jealous, I'm not gonna lie. I was seriously jealous of like, because I feel like the pregnancy glow just shines so much through you during that time. I was like, gosh, I wish I looked like that.
And I love too, this is something that people don't think of until someone else goes through it and like your eyes are opened. But I remember your sister-in-law making a sign for your hospital door.
Yes.
And that is like, because that's also like a reality that we all kind of have to think of, is that, so you were not able to breastfeed your firstborn because you had to have like life-saving surgery. So what did the sign say? Remind me.
Something along the lines of, although breastfeeding is a wonderful thing, my baby will be bottle. I'm going to butcher it.
No, it something saying like, "Mom is a survivor."
Yes. It said, "My baby will be formula fed, and that won't affect her future." Something along those lines.
And I just think it's so important that was out there because it saved you from a hard conversation, really. Or, you know,
and having to hash it out every time. And she was in the process of making me some for Jeremiah, and then I had him 3.5 weeks early, so I didn't have those in time, and I had to explain it to nurses.
Did you?
Yes, okay. They were pretty good about handing it off in reports, but still having to say it. And I've had at least a couple people that I knew throughout treatment say things to me about like, oh, are you bottle or breastfeeding? And I'm like, I can't breastfeed. But when I
they're out of commission, okay?
But
they don't work.
When I step back and think about it, I'm like, well, I have not lived a life of what I went through. I've tried to live my life without fear of recurrence, and I guess that kind of just speaks to people have forgotten, you know, like I haven't forgotten, but other people, it's going to be easy for them because if you're not talking about it, people...
Definitely. I think that's so true. I think people just, and this is back to a conversation that we had in the episode that's going to air before this one. It's like when you go through cancer, I feel like the trauma of it to other people, and it may sound ridiculous, that somebody who's not going through it can have any form of trauma from seeing somebody that they know or love go through it. It's like the second that they view it as over, there's no more talking about it. And I honestly think that is not a good thing, because you are not allowing, as the person who didn't go through it, you're not allowing your family member or friend or close, you know, acquaintance or whatever, talk about it, because they feel like they can't, because if they bring it up, there's like this resistance. And I think that, you know, those people owe it to that person that just went through this journey to open that window. Like, ask them how they're doing. Say, how's everything going with breast cancer? Are you good to go? Like, what's going on? Like, tell me what's, you know, any little thing like that could make such a, you know, better situation for you to just express how things are going and feel like you have those people in your corner, because it's hard when they all kind of, you know, go do their own thing now. Like, you're not a concern anymore. Like, that's kind of how it felt.
Which is sometimes refreshing. So, okay, they don't feel the need to check up on me anymore. I'm doing all right. But then it's also made me a better friend to realize or be more in tune with other things my friends are going through, to like send a text or just a check-in, you know?
Yeah, like any little thing could make a big difference. And although, you know, it doesn't seem that we probably talked about it a lot after things were over, there's still a lot of things in our personal lives that we're trying to, you know, navigate, and opening that door could really help somebody. So yes, I do agree with the whole like checking in on your friends. I feel like now I see it from both sides.
Oh, we all have
I'm
a
like,
way
my
better
gosh.
understanding because
Yes.
we've been through something
Yes.
that's isolating or whatever. But it's funny because you say that. I feel like I overshare about my. I really do, and I'm like, okay, they just met me. They know I had breast cancer. I feel like
such a big part of you.
It
does.
is. Yeah, like you're an
Yeah.
open book, and I think if you just are who you are, like
Yeah.
unapologetically, like that just is that's beautiful in itself.
right.
So yeah,
Because the whole mission is, even before the podcast or anything, if we know that sharing our journey could help one person, how like monumental that could be within their whole process of treatment and all that. So
yeah, and I know like some people have asked us like, why now? Like, why has it taken you this long to like want to share your
because we're
your
7
journey?
years.
Yeah,
Or
so,
approaching.
approaching. Yes.
That's awesome.
I think honestly now that we have even more experience, you know, post cancer, I feel like what I have to say is even more valuable now versus if we had done this right out the gate. Like I don't know if it would have been as beneficial from, you know, our perspective. I think we needed to go through that time where we healed on our own and really figured out how to navigate the next step.
Because we were talking about that earlier, all three of us, about how just kind of adjusting to the norm, you know, of like, okay, once treatment ends and then, you know, we're taking care of our kids and seeing like our bodies are kind of chilling. My emotions and everything from tamoxifen and stuff had made it like a little bit different to navigate, you know, but just taking the time after that too. But it's funny because we've talked about like just how healing it is to kind of talk and just have conversation about this again, you know? Yeah. So you had your son 5 months ago. So are you taking tamoxifen again, or what is your regimen at this point?
I'm nothing.
Nothing. Okay.
Yep. I'm 2 yearly appointments with my oncologist and yearly appointments with my breast surgeon and yearly MRIs.
Okay.
So I'm not doing any medications.
Wow, I didn't realize you would be doing any form of imaging.
Yes.
Because I've only had 1 round of imaging since, and that was just because of something that they were like, okay, we just want to double check kind of thing, which everyone always finds so fascinating. They're like, you don't do anything? They don't do anything. They don't check on what's going on. Like, they touch everything. Okay, like, we're good.
Right. Did they use the term remission after yours?
They never did.
Same with us.
Everybody's like, when were you deemed like cancer free? And I'm like, that was never like a thing.
It wasn't.
And yeah,
and we don't mention. No.
So I will tell you that my story is a little bit unique on that. My surgical oncologist, with how traumatic my mastectomy was. The one thing that he did when I met with him a week after, because that was a lot. I was overwhelmed and thinking like, what's happened to me? Like, what's going on? Whatever. He came in the room and he sat down in the chair. He didn't say anything. And my husband was with me. And he like sits down in the chair and he like grabs my legs and he was like, I am so sorry. Like, he was just like apologizing for everything that had happened. And, my husband goes, well, do you have good news? Because actually I do. He was like, there was no cancer left in your body. And so he didn't say remission, but Jason did. He was like, does that mean she's in remission? He like wanted a clear answer. He was like, well, we're not really supposed to go, you know, into that, but yes, like she is in remission basically. But he kind of toyed around with the word.
I wonder why.
I don't know. I am curious to why, but the fact that he said I didn't have any cancer in my body, that to me is saying that without saying it.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's when I kind of like my cancer-free date is always April 5th of whatever year, because that's when I had my bilateral mastectomy. So but other people do it of their last chemo, or, you know, like I forget, it wasn't anyone's like diagnosis date, because that really wouldn't make sense to me. Yeah. But I've met other people who claim different milestones as to when that is. And I was like, that's so interesting.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I just hit that 4-year mark of finishing all the targeted therapy, and I kind of just think like, oh, I've been done with cancer treatment for 4 years now. I never really think of the cancer-free date or whatever. But yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. So I guess it could be like cancerversary.
Yeah.
You know, you could like decide on your own whatever that means to you. But man, what a good like testimony and journey and story, just because 4 years, and it's been a whirlwind. That's been a lot to pack into 4 years.
It really is.
Yeah. Man,
that's amazing. And you have 2 healthy, beautiful kids, and what a testimony. Like, they're gonna think their mom is a rock star when they find out, like, all the things that you've done. I mean, how awesome is that?
What does Taylor know, or does she ask anything, or?
We are very open with her. She's 5.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm let's edit that out. I'm thinking like, because, okay, yeah. Never mind.
It's just because she was born in the middle of all of that happening, which is even crazy. Like, just that's just even crazy to say.
Yeah.
But so she's 5, and we've been. She knows the word cancer, and we've kind of made it like joking about me having fake boobs, and I mean we're very open about it, and. I made her like a photo album type thing, and I like named it While You Were in My Belly. So I put like my social media posts in there, and I tried to type out all of the doctor's appointments that we had and put them in there. So it's like the whole journey of when she was in my belly. And I actually looked through those today before I came here, because I was like, I need to try to remember some of this stuff.
We really do. Yeah.
And it was just so bizarre because I think about it like a lot. It's not like it's something that I forget about, but really taking yourself back and looking through all of that is definitely re-traumatizing.
Yes.
But I think it's good, because then you remember all of the things that you've made it through, and all the people that have been with you through it all, and just that God is good at the end of the day. God is good, and He brought us through. So
which is why we don't take this for granted that you came here to sit down and talk to us about this, because as Amy and I both know, going backwards and kind of diving into the beginning to now, it is really hard. But what we found throughout that process is how healing this really is. And I think when you go back and you like validate everything that you've done up to this point, like I just feel a sense of gratitude for myself, and I don't feel like we do that enough. I think we sometimes neglect ourselves. And I'm just so proud of everything that I've been able to overcome and accomplish in that amount of time. And really just that I'm still here. I'm just forever grateful to just be here and be able to share this. So I do not take it for granted that you came here today. And I know that it is hard to go backwards and be like, okay, do I want to talk about it?
Right.
Like, how do I bring that, So I get that. And I just want you to know how thankful we are.
Yeah, we are so glad, because your story was one that, I mean, it's so like unique, but also it's like, I just know that there's going to be somebody else though that's eventually going to face the things that you faced, and that you could be their light through their darkness, and just really bring somebody through. And I think that just, is the whole reason why we do what we do.
Yeah. And
one thing that we want to like continue to do with other guests is just ask and see what would be your biggest piece of advice after going through everything that you went through, and knowing what you know now.
Biggest piece of advice.
That's a really big
question. It is a big question.
It is, yeah.
Live your life.
Yeah.
I think my faith in knowing that the good and the bad all work together for His good has helped me just go about every day and try not to live in fear of getting cancer again, or someone around me getting cancer. I just feel like it's really important to look back and see what you've been through, and just try to move forward and live your life.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, I love that. That's so true. You're absolutely right. And I think we all deserve to do that for ourselves because, you know, at the end of the day, we should be able to smile when we look in the mirror and just be proud of who we are and who we've become. And I think it's just what was meant to be in our journey here. So I think that's the blessing, really the silver lining in all of it, is that we're now stronger and you can't mess with us because we got this.
Maybe we were given a choice, but we got through it, you know, and we did really good. So,
Such a blessing to be sitting here with you guys.
Thank you. We're so happy that you did this. And like I said, thank you so much for being willing to sit down and talk about something so vulnerable because, as you know, it's not easy, but we hope that, like we say in our little tagline, we are going to journey together and heal together because that's what we want, and we want that for all of our viewers. So thank you guys so much for joining us today. If you guys have any questions or comments that you'd like to leave us, especially on Brittany's experience, please put those in the comments below and let us know. Let us know what else you'd like to hear and if there's anything that we can do to help you. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening to the Beyond the Ribbon podcast. Our mission is to empower and support those affected by breast cancer. If you feel led to donate and support our mission, you may do so by clicking the link in our bio.
Don't forget to follow and share our content to help spread awareness and support. Remember, we journey together and we heal together.